Okay, so this should be live now.
The greatest line of a first video.
This should be live. If it isn't live, something's going wrong.
Fair enough.
Are we live? Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay.
Hello, well.
Right, so we have myself, Sam. We have Phil, who is also from WargamerOnline, and we have Mr. Pink, who is here.
Hi there, guys. In spirit.
Although it keeps switching to Liam, who's just painting away. I don't know what you're doing, Liam. Are you painting Nid still?
Yeah, painting a Spawn of Cryptus from the Shield of Baal set that came out a while back.
That was like 3 years, 2 years, wasn't it?
No, I'd say about a year and a half.
Okay. Well, that's good. So we've got 4 of us on today. Liam, I didn't know if he was going to join us or not, and he has decided to come on at the last moment, so he can add his 2p to everything that we're talking about. Anyway, so first thing we're going to be doing is just chatting about what we've been working on over the last few weeks, because we've all been pretty busy. And I know Phil has changed his mind quite a few times on what he's going to be doing with his particular project at the moment.
Do I start?
Well, yeah, yours is probably the biggest project, isn't it, really?
Come on. Right, okay then. So, yeah, the big piece of work is a Zone Mortalis board, which I've christened Mine Mortalis because it's based on a Gene Stealer cult mine. And it's got several sections to it, based on the original Forge World Zone Mortalis. So obviously that starts from sort of a mine where they've tunneled down, goes down several levels, and then into the belly of some kind of weird buried Tyranid Leviathan. So that gets all gribbly and horrible. And while I'm working on that, and I should be focusing on that, but I needed to do something else to keep sane, I started working on going back over some Tyranids and finishing a few gribbly projects off. So I think the big thing over the last 10 days has been the NIDs I'm working on here with nice little iridescent pattern to the back, and that's about the 3rd colour that I've used. And also I've got a Red Terror, which has been scratch built out of a whole bunch of spares, basically. So, and again, although Red Terror is a bit of a stretch, really, because it ends up being purple Terror. Yeah, I can't see purple. I'm red-blue colourblind. Anyway, that's what I've been working on. Lots of them.
I think that blue definitely works.
The blue works.
Yes, and you can. You've been a bit fed up, haven't you? Really, talking about those wings over and over again.
Very fed up talking about the wings. Everybody asks me where the wings are from, and I always say Crypt Horrors, but apparently I could be wrong in that. So they're not called Crypt Horrors anymore. They've got a new name, but they used to be called Crypt Horrors. I'm pretty certain.
Everyone knows them as Crypt Horrors.
Yeah. Okay. Age of Sigmar. Look up the Death Army. Look up the ghouls, and you'll find the flappy dudes that these wings come up.
But you've had to chop them up quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, take a bit of converting because they're very muscly arms, and obviously with they're not exoskeletons, so they've got the muscles, and that doesn't really suit the Tyranid look. So I've had to. I don't know how much the camera will pick up, but I'll try. Maybe a bit further back. You can see that basically I've taken the top half of the arm off and replaced it with Tyranid arms. So again, it goes into an exoskeleton and out. So a little bit of green stuff out and replace the thumbs with actual Tyranid hands. So you've just got that style carrying over.
They look awesome, and they're a lot more dynamic as well, because at first you were struggling with posing them, and I think by the end of it you've nailed him. Like, he looks pretty dynamic. He's diving straight over or something.
Lash whip and bone sword as well, which and also that I think the big bit of detail is changing the hooves on the legs. So I've kept the legs, but they've still got the look of the leg. Rather than give them 6 arms, which sometimes people do, didn't really want to go that route. I wanted to keep the legs. But that meant changing the feet to rending claws, which makes them look a bit more bird-like, a bit more grippy. But I do, I've seen a few people use Ravners, the Ravner body for the Shrikes. I think that, the thing is for me is they look quite heavy. They're quite, the tail's really thick and strong, and I kind of figured the warrior body actually suited better. They look a bit more sort of bird-like, a bit more lightweight. So that's what I'm working on. I could talk forever about those. I'm not going to.
I was going to say you've got one great one, haven't you, where you've converted up the legs on one of the warriors to give it more of a sort of bird-like talon look with the rending talons, is it?
Yes, yeah. There you can see them all hanging their little rending claws down.
That's cool.
Which is
all right then. So yeah, I mean you've had sleepless nights sitting away doing those. Liam's doing his on stream now. What are you working on, Liam?
Spawn of Cryptus, as I said earlier. There we go.
Another
Just
nid.
doing another nid. Bone, main body, and then purple in areas such as the head and the arms, and the hands and the spines on the back.
Have you changed the colour scheme on those?
These are going to be for my Gene Stealer cult. So Nids and Gene Stealer cult are going to be two different hive fleets, so I can see which one's which instead of mixing up the 5-pin Van Gene Stealers with the no-in Van Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a lot easier for gaming purposes.
Oh, that's cool. Are you planning to use them in 40k then, or are you using them in Mine Mortalis when it's built?
Well, a little bit of everything really, because
cool.
they're quite a brutal army from what I found out today in an experimental game.
Why? What happened?
You know the where they can come out of the shadows first turn if you have the infiltrate special rule. I rolled a dice for come from the shadows, which is essentially a table, and then I rolled 6, which essentially means you can come out and charge the first turn.
Can you set up within 3 inches of them or something like that
6
as well?
inches.
6
inches. But I charged this special character, Contemptor Dreadnought, from Heresy, I believe, that was being used in a Chaos Space Marine army. But I charged them with the unit of Gene Stealers with the Patriarch. I got some psychic powers off, which gave me Rage, +1 Strength, and they have Furious Charge on that turn because the Patriarch was there. So I did that. Charged this Contemptor. He tried issuing a challenge. I, of course, accepted. He would have got an instant death on my Patriarch, but they've got a special rule which allows them to look out Sir even in a challenge, which is quite nice, especially against instant death weapons.
that's ace.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I would have
Mr.
been
Graham Gaming saying, looking good, sir, liking the pose on the Nids, even if it is Xenos Scum. Thank you very much. I'm assuming you're talking about my pose, but maybe you're talking about Liam's posing.
Too many Nids. So, Pink, what have you been doing? I know you've been crying quite a bit.
Only because it's taken me forever to actually get anything done. So, unfortunately, unlike Phil, who can spend about 10 minutes and change the colour scheme of his entire army, I've been spending the last couple of weeks, just trying to get base colours down on some Blood Reavers, bit of Age of Sigmar work. Because what I'm hoping is that we're actually going to go along to Warhammer World next month, because they've got the Triumph and Treachery on the 11th or 12th of March. I think there's still tickets available for that. So that's a 1,000-point list. So I'm doing some Khorne Bloodbound for that.
Yeah.
I've got Bloodsecrator, Khorne Lord on Juggernaut, 6 Mighty Skull Crushers, and 20 Blood Reavers, and 10 Marauder Horsemen. So this is the last piece of that army.
Fair enough.
Also means hopefully we can start doing some smaller Age of Sigmar games, which would be a bit fun.
Yeah, I mean,
get some battle reports done.
They're good fun, especially the smaller point games, because we played. I don't think I've played your stuff yet because you've been waiting to paint them, but Mike had played a bunch of Skaven games versus my orcs, and I played Rachel a ton of times as well. And I don't think me and Phil have played. I've just used his army. But the small point games are a lot of fun, and they're a lot easier to learn the rules. I know there's only 4 pages, but you've got a lot of rules with like scenery and all of the abilities on each individual unit. So it is quite good to start off small and then work your way up to the bigger games once you've figured out what everything does.
Yeah, I can see it being easy to forget like abilities and stuff like that.
It was interesting on Warhammer TV. Sorry, they were saying that the American guys don't use the scenery rules. They've not encountered that before, you know. But I think that's quite common, isn't it? A lot of people skip those scenery rules.
It does change the game quite dramatically, though. I mean, one of the games I played. Oh, got some bad feedback there. Who's that from?
Was it me?
Maybe.
No, I don't think so.
Might be me.
Carry on, Sam.
Okay. Yeah, it changes the game quite dramatically. So I played one game against Dave and ran my brutes or something across one of the terrain pieces that was deadly, and I think it killed most of my unit. And like my shaman just died. Like I thought it was running through or charging through, and didn't really worry about it. Walked my shaman onto the scenery and then rolled a 1 because it's actually when you end your turn in it, and he died. And obviously the shaman was quite key to my Iron Jaw strategy, so that was rubbish. So I think cutting some of the scenery rules out does sometimes take away some of the really epic moments that change the game quite dramatically.
Yeah.
And it means you have the bigger battles and suddenly you've not actually learnt all the rules.
Yeah, I mean, you just throw your one army against another army and you all roll dice and they all end up in a big free-for-all in the middle of the board and you just start again. There's not as much to it. Whereas if you've got scenery to look out for or things to position around, like if you've got a big rock formation that gives your casters +1 to cast, you're going to automatically try and get your casters near there. So it changes the way you do things. You don't automatically push everything forwards or pull everything back and shoot. You do think about it a lot more. So, yeah. But that will be good. I mean, that event, I'm sure if you tell Rachel about it, reminder that that's on, she'll want to go, and we'll have to. Was it March? Did you say?
Yeah, 11th and 12th. So it's a Saturday, Sunday. It is a double day event.
Yeah.
But we're close enough that we could probably drive.
Yeah.
We'll share the driving.
No, that'll be fine. It just means I've got to get another 1,000-point army painted, or Phil's got to get another 1,000-point army painted for Rachel in time. Okay, so that's what we've all been working on. I mean, I've been doing, I think everyone's fed up with them now, it's word bearers. So I've been doing those for the Mind Mortalis games, and I only have one more character left to do, which is a chaplain. So I'm going to aim to try and get him done tomorrow, but I've done 15 tactical size marines, 1 character, and 5 Galvorback. So that's what I've done recently, and they've come out really nicely. So that's what I've been working on. Right, so let's move on to. I mean, we'll have a little bit of chat about Zone Mortalis because we don't really do too much gaming, and I know Pink's been looking into what units would be quite good to use in that game type, and I know Luke keeps Luke always comes up with some sort of filth that we can use in games quite regularly, and we're going to try and hear some things that you can do to have some filth basically on Zone Mortalis. So what have you found, Pink, that is quite good?
Well, I think there's a few things that make Zone Mortalis different from a regular game. And it's worth saying that actually, if you want to get a quicker game, like for us, we're sort of doing this in the evenings. And of course, we've got a great excuse of Phil designing an absolutely stunning board. Can't wait to get that finished and get some pictures up for everyone to see. But what it means is we're playing at a 750 point limit. So you've normally got a character and then, 2 to 3 units, perhaps a dreadnought in there. But other than that, it means that your games probably take an hour or less, which is quite useful. It means you can get in a couple a night. So first things to consider really is the fact that you can't have anything that can't fit through the corridors. So for most of that limits you to something the size of a dreadnought, so you've got no vehicles in there. So you're looking at primarily an infantry game. However, that does normally mean that if you can manage to squeeze a Contemptor, a Contemptor Quartus, or even a box dread into your list, then that actually makes a lot of other people think twice about what they're going to bring.
Yeah.
So I think particularly one of the stars of the most recent book, the Retribution, was the Contemptor Quartus. So unlike the normal Contemptor that costs 175 points, which is quite a lot if you're going to squeeze it into a 750 point list, especially if you're going to try and give it any upgrades. Contemptor Quartus is, I think, 135 base, and then what you've done for that is you've lost 1 weapon skill, 1 ballistic skill, so that's 4, so both 1 strength, but you don't really care because you're giving it a dreadnought close combat weapon, so you're always going to be strength 10 anyways, and you lose 1 side armor, so you're down to 11. But realistically, when you're in Zone Mortalis and you're in these small corridors, what we've got is a mine, but otherwise quite often it's supposed to represent either like a facility or like a spaceship. the side armor isn't really going to be too much of a big issue, because quite often you're going to be in these corridors and only presenting either your front or your rear.
Yeah.
So
cool.
the sort of things I've been looking at really is trying to get that in there, and either a couple of squads of Terminators and a Delegatus, because if you're going to take Terminators as troops, you're going to have to run the Rite of War, Pride of Legion.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing Blood Angels myself, I do quite like using Assault Marines. So unfortunately, any jump pack model that moves more than 6 inches in the movement phase, you've got to take a dangerous terrain test.
Or it dies in my case.
Or it dies in your case,
yeah.
It's that's only a 1 in 6 chance per model you're actually going to take a wound, and then you've still got your armor save. So I think realistically, I lost maybe 1 or 2 guys to it, but that wasn't really the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it meant that actually, when I last played Luke, and he had just an infantry-based Raven Guard army, I was able to quickly outmaneuver him, and he couldn't really bring his guns to bear before he got stuck into close combat, where they absolutely annihilated him.
Yeah.
So I can recommend those.
Well, the other stuff is certain rules change, don't they, when you play Zone Mortalis? So things like if you have a Flamer unit, they get shred. So I've got a 5-man tactical support squad, and they're about 100 points. They're really cheap, but all of their Flamers, if you get them within range, suddenly get shred. The other one was grenade launchers or frag weaponry. What do they do? I'm sure somebody said that they hit...
it's any blast, basically. It only scatters as far as the wall. When the center point reaches the wall, it stops there. So you've got a 5-inch blast, center point hits the wall, it's still filling a good portion of the corridor.
Yeah.
So if it scatter to the side at all when you're targeting a unit, then you're pretty much in luck. Obviously, if it scatters forward, backwards, then it might move a bit, but yeah, even so, nasty business.
I think it'll be good once we've got... we're all pretty much got our armies done now, or close to being done. We can finish the mine fairly quickly. You've done all those nasty, gribbly, mucus-looking pool bits on there now. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's disgusting. Proper slimy. So that's almost done.
Had a weird digestion board, and I've also got, just quickly, one of the main sort of corridor sections there. So I don't know how well that's showing on camera, but you get the idea.
But they look beautiful. Like, they were very basic at first, weren't they? And we were more than happy to start playing it on that.
Yeah.
With a bit of styrofoam on a board, and then every day Phil sent another message. Oh, I've just stuck some more detail on it. Oh, that looks even better. Yeah, brilliant. Next day off, stuck some more detail on it. Oh, that looks brilliant. And then he spent like 2 nights wiring, lighting, and cables and stuff across the entire length. And it's not like there's a small amount of boards. You've done enough for like a 6x4 table, haven't you? So it's a lot of work, and it's now finally getting done. So we're going to have some cool battle reports on that. Anyway, so we've done a few bits of chatting about what is good. We can go more into depth with that, and we can also get Luke on, because Luke loves talking filthy lists and rules and things like that. So if it's something that people want to listen to or want to debate, we'll get Luke and Pink having a filth off, as it is. They can just shout at each other and throw filthy rules at each other. So we're going to go on to... It's a bit of a topic that's probably behind a week or two, but I'd like to talk about it anyway. And it's the Gathering Storm Fracture of Bealtan. Because one, it scared the living daylights out of Phil, because he thought his beloved army was about to go down the pan. But now he's got loads of really cool rules to go with his armies, and a load of really nice models as well. So we'll talk about the models first, and what you think about those. In particular, like I'll see if I can get a screen grab. Let's have a Luke image. Right, so we've got the big one first of all, which is the Yukon, and it's not Uned, is it? It's an avatar.
It's the avatar of so it's the incarnate. So yeah, this is it's a great model, to be honest. I've only really spent a bit of time looking at it on the sprue.
Just covering your face. There we go.
That's okay. I'll call it that. Slightly more handsome than my face. So yeah. First reactions when I first saw the illustration, I was thinking, you see the images getting leaked and all the rest, and the first reaction was, well, it looks a bit Slanesh-y. Yeah. Not quite sure it's right. And then, as ever, when you sort of you get you see, I think Games Workshop have been doing a lot of great stuff at the moment online and social, and one of the things they're doing is exposing the designers to the end audience, and they talk through the design process. And I think, and when you get that rationale coming through, you know, the idea of this avatar is it's born of the spirits of the dead Eldar, and Slanesh was born out of Eldar, so of course they're going to have, you know, their root source was the same. So they're going to share an aesthetic, and he's a god of the dead. You know, he's not going to look fluffy and cuddly, is he? He's probably not going to look that beautiful either. He needs to look quite scary. You know, okay, he's very live and all the rest. So I think when you kind of hear that rationale, you know, strangely enough, the design grew on me. But at the end of the day, it's a beautiful model. Looking at it on the sprue, I've got the set. I've not even attempted to cut it off the sprue yet. It's incredibly intricate. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on Facebook forums and groups where people are saying they're struggling with the build. It's very difficult to handle. I'm not sure about that yet. I've not actually tried it. You know, my main concern is I think you know there's going to be a bit of blood for the blood clot. There's a lot of spiky bits on there, and it's also, it looks, you know, from my point of view, I'm an airbrusher, so I tend to work in, you know, components, separate components, and then, you know, get all the bases down and then stick it together. It looks difficult to do that, to be honest. I think it's going to have to be built and then painted. I'm not sure you can work with the components.
But the kits have got better, haven't they? The way that Games Workshop make their sprues now, some of them connect so well that you don't need glue a lot of the time, or a minimal amount of glue, and it might go together in a way where you can paint it a lot easier than you think.
And like I said, I've not even taken it off the sprue at the moment. I am not complaining at all. It's an amazing model. I think it's fantastic.
Well, Steve's put in the chat, Nagash is beautiful, and it does look like Nagash's sort of aesthetic, doesn't it, with the whole spirit trailing around it. And that's the first thing I thought with their models now. They're going with the whole Age of Sigmar style, and I quite like the way they're going with it now. It's not a bad thing.
I think at the end of the day, it looks lethal, which is exactly what I want from that. And that thing pops up on the board, you want to be worried. And it's lethal just to pick up, so what it's going to do to other models.
I think it would be good for a Fulgrim model as well. I know there's a lot of rumours we'll go into story and things like that, but I think you could make a demon Fulgrim model out of that quite easily. Take off all the spirity stuff and give it some wings or you know, a couple of weapons. A tail, I just think it's a really good starting point for a conversion for that.
You even use Hive Tyrant lower torso, couldn't you?
Hive Tyrant lower torso, yeah. I mean, it's probably going to be quite... Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean, the tail, the Hive Tyrant tail is quite stocky.
Do it going up the lower torso, the Yinyard avatar. And got a tail for it.
I just had an image of his upper half sitting in some Tyrannid trousers.
Just really chunky thighs.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's that model. I really like it. What else have we got? We also have the Emissary. So this is called Yvraine or Iraine.
Yeah, Iraine. Iraine.
I'm not a fan of this one.
There's no Y's. It's all an I.
I love it. And conversion-wise, again, it's Vampire Lord or an Inquisitor straight away to me.
Don't butcher it. It's a beautiful model. It's a beautiful model. My only question, the headdress. Maybe do something with that.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, when you read the book and you get into the character, she's an absolute massive show-off. You know, so from a design aesthetic point of view, it worked. When I saw it again, I was thinking it's very Baroque. It felt more like Imperial aesthetic than it did Eldar aesthetic. But again, you start to get into that whole idea that this is a return to the Eldar race as it once was. It's not a progression forward, it's a regression backwards. So when you think that the Dark Eldar aesthetic must have come from somewhere, the Eldar aesthetic came from somewhere, the Harlequin aesthetic came from somewhere, and what you've got is this sort of, you know, retrofitting this story of what the Eldar race in its origins look like. And this is what she embodies. She embodies bits of Dark Eldar, bits of Harlequin and Grace of the Pose, and bits of, you know, some of the other areas which kind of remind you of the craft world. But so for me, again, it's one of those things. It didn't work at first. I was like, I don't get it. It looks like, you know, some kind of, you could imagine her on a ballroom of some crazy gothic event taking place on Terra. But you know, as you kind of you go through the book and you read through the story and you get an idea of the character, and it just works for me. It just works. But that whole massive dress, by the way, she can just lively step out of that and go into battle, and I just imagine it remains upright. It just stays there. You know? So she kind of dances around, kills everybody, and then just hops back into the dress and walks forward.
It ends up
again.
looking like a tent as well, I imagine. You could just crawl into the front of it and go to sleep. It is quite a big model.
Hiding in there.
Yeah, it's a big model. Saying that it's not as big as you think, it is a proper Eldar model, so it's very thin. You know, and I think again when you see it on the sprue, you realise actually that you think it's big because there's so much detail, but when you actually see the model, it's not that big, and it's just incredibly intricate detail. So for me, it works. Again, first reaction was not sure about this, and as time has gone on, I've really fallen in love with it.
I definitely need one of those. I think these kits that keep coming out with the 3 in each. I love the Witch Hunter from the other Triumvirate, and I love this model from this set. And I think I'm probably ending up doing some sort of Rogue Trader or a Inquisition force based around these models that look so good, and just chop them all up. An easy excuse.
She's just commented she's got good underwire. I think that's the point exactly. She can just step away from that bad boy, and it will wait for her to finish battle, and she will walk.
How many of these triumvirates do you think we're going to get? Is the next one the last one, or sorry, not Gulliman's one, but the one after?
I don't think it's going to be the last. You know, reading the book too. I think there's some breakout sections within the book. These things called Addenda Inquisitoria, which are these internal reports within the guild. Anyone who's a fan of Dune, it works on the same basis. These are internal reports within the Inquisition, which talk about activity that's taken outside of this storyline. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some Necrons. We know what the next Triumvirate is going to be anyway. The images have already leaked, haven't we? So we know that's going to be Gilliman and the Grey Knights. And what's
I've got some pictures of those, so I can put those up next because they're on the Warhammer community page. I've already got those. But you've also got the Chaos as well, haven't you? Chaos are going to have some sort of Triumvirate.
You'd think, wouldn't you? You think that's where it's going to end, probably. I mean, before we move on, the Visage, the Visarch, rather, beautiful. I mean, again, this is the whole point. It leans towards the Dark Eldar, but you've got faces in there which remind you of the masks of the Harlequins, and it's a little bit less spiky than the Dark Eldar. Again, once you start reading that book, you do feel, can you imagine this is what it was like 10,000 years ago, the Eldar Empire at its height, and this is what all of their warriors look like. You know, it's just amazing. You know, they're just rulers of the universe, which is what they were, you know, so I think it's just fantastic. It works for me. It works. It does.
One thing I wanted to talk about with this model is I spoke to Pink about it last night, and I've started to notice on the painting side of things that Heavy Metal Team are starting to do a lot of tiny little dots on the corners of armour, and I've only just started to see it now, especially with this model. I don't know if I can enlarge it any more than it is, but just to pick out edges. I'll zoom in really far on this one. So you can see on the bottom of his helmet, he's just got 2 dots with a tiny bit of almost yellow on each edge bit, and it just picks out all of those armor plates. So I've started to do that on my Galvorbacks. I'll post up some pictures. Obviously it's not as good quality as these, but you can definitely tell the difference from a distance where you put those dots, and it just picks out, it defines the armor for you really. So that's another one. And I'll quickly put up, I mean, we probably won't do another topic on Gilliman and what else was the Cypher and the Grey Knight that nobody knows the name of. I've got his name, but
the Grey Knight, dude.
His name's Voldis, but I mean,
he's just that guy's looking a bit fire dragony, and I think that's the whole thing. You do get that sense of there is a bit of Craftworld design in there. The fire dragon are quite elaborate armor compared to some of the sort of Craftworld Eldar, but again, works for me. Grey Knight.
Grey Knight. He just looks like a Grey Knight for me. It's a nice model, just nothing special.
Yeah, it looks like a generic captain also, doesn't it?
Yeah. What else was there? We had Cypher, which I really liked. Cypher looks quality. Very dynamic. I like the oversized sword on his back. Phil's still got his Cypher model as well. You need to get that painted.
The thing that interested me about this bit was that all of the models that come in the Triumvirate have always been usable together. they're always the same faction.
Hmm.
So the fact that you've got Cypher in the same one as the Grey Knights and as Gulliman,
Yeah.
does that suggest that actually he's going to be a Imperial agent now, or is that going to be a separate faction even? Because we've already had an Imperial Triumvirate.
That's true. I think the next, when it comes out, obviously we'll get all the fluff, the background and things, so we'll know exactly what they're doing. But like Steve says in the chat, it's definitely an improvement on the last one. The last one was a nice model, but this one is just a completely step up from it. And it's probably going to be
a long time, hasn't it?
It's been a long time, but the old one was still a nice model. Like, you get a lot of dated models that you probably wouldn't buy now. Chaos have got quite a lot of nice models, like Lucius and Typhus and things like that. Their models are really old, but they're still nice. But you get other ones that date very quickly. And this one definitely stands out as a new type of Cypher, so I'm well happy with him. Right, we'll switch to the last one from this set before... Oh no, Phil's probably going to have his Cypher now, isn't he?
No, I did, but don't worry about it. You bring yours.
It's just,
I think I'll stick with my Cypher.
It's just the big guy. Oh.
The big G himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us saw the Photoshop that somebody did where they turned him into the Emperor.
Yeah.
If anyone hasn't seen that, go look at that.
Yeah, just type in Emperor Gilliman.
It makes a better Emperor than it does a Primarch.
I like it.
In my opinion.
I've talked through this a little bit with some of the guys down at the local GW store, and for me, again, this works. I don't want him to look like a heresy. I don't want him to put his heresy armor on. It's 10,000 years old. It will smell if they didn't mothball it properly. You know, I think if he's going to come back, he's going to come back into an Imperium that's completely changed. He's going to be pretty much worshipped as a god, so the Mechanicum's just going to build him some wicked piece of armor that's just going to look amazing, and and baroque and crazy and overly ornate, and there's some Mechanicum aesthetics in there. The leg pauldrons are like those of the robots that came out for the Mechanicum, Cult Mechanicum. So for me, it just works. I think it fits 40k.
I love it. Steve says in the chat he prefers the Forge World one, and I think this is the thing that
I'm the same.
Well, you like it as well. This is the thing Games Workshop and Forge World are doing now. They're capturing completely different audiences, aren't they? Within their clients already, their customers. Sorry. So I absolutely love this one. I'd buy this one to put into a 30k army. I know people would cry because the armor isn't right or anything, but I would just put this in the army and play it. Whereas Steve and yourself, you both like the Forge World version, so I think they're capturing a lot. You said at the beginning, why have they bothered doing a 40k Gilliman? I would have never bought the 30k one, whereas this one I would buy just to paint up or put in an army as a conversion. So I'll be
interested to see what the relative size of the models are. Saying that you could use each one for the other one, because it might be just perspective, but that new one looks freaking ginormous.
He probably is, but at the end of the day, it's a game of toy soldiers. If I turn up with a slightly bigger Primarch and chuck him on the table, great, you can hit him more. You can see him over all the buildings. I'll take that hit just to have the model that I really like.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
He's had 10,000 years to grow. Of course he's going to be bigger.
Yeah.
I'm still hoping for that one day.
Yeah. There's nothing that continue to grow, they may well. Yeah. They're immortal. They could keep growing forever. Who knows?
So that's the chatting about the models. We've also got the Deathworld Forest scenery kit. I didn't take a picture of this. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Any of you?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so negative today. I just think it looks horrendous.
I saw Phil's face start to just frown as well there. Say, Deathworld scenery? I don't like it.
I'll reserve judgment on it until I've seen it. Not everything works on photo. It's one of those things, a board with a whole bunch of that scattered around. Crazy rules involved as well.
I think if you painted it right, it would be okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's too early to tell. Something as spiky and 3D as that and all over the place. The only thing, I'll tell you, my main concern is, my first glance at it looked like aquarium scenery.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you get from a pet shop, and I just think they could have gone, given the chance you're designing from nothing.
Yeah.
That's what I would have liked them to maybe go a different direction with it. Plants don't have to look like.
Colours as well might make it different because, I mean, looking at it now, it's very bright, vibrant colours. And I think if you blended them into a base with some models on it, it might look a lot better.
Yeah.
We'll see. Somebody's bound to do it, and they'll change your mind, and it'll be worth waiting.
Steve's just saying on the chat is with me on this one. It's aquarium scenery, but you get a lot of it. It does make the point. You think you need a lot of it to look any decent, but again, you get a lot for that £80 box. I have to give GW credit on that.
80 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot in there. There's a lot of scenery in there, so I could live with that.
Yeah, 84 component multi-part plastic kit. So there's a lot of stuff in there, and you also got all the rules in there like normal now. So you've got spined Vemengorse, barbed Vemengorse, Eldritch Ruins, and Grappleweed. So there's 4 types of scenery within there.
Steve is advising we keep an open mind, and I'm going to take his advice on this.
Yeah.
Basically.
Cool. So that's models. What else? I mean, we've gone through this fairly fluidly. I mean, book, we've got background, so we've got story time with Phil, which is always brilliant. You can listen to story time with Phil for a long time, actually.
Yeah, I was spending 2 hours just listening to this.
Just get a cup of coffee or a tea.
I was going to do a brief overview. I mean, a lot of people online have already covered the book, the rules, and all the rest.
Whoa. Before we start, actually, sorry, we'll do spoilers because we don't want anyone having their Gathering Storm 2 ruined. So if you are going to be going through that yourself, skip forward. I don't know how we can indicate that this area is over.
I don't think I'm going to say too much on that. I'll avoid spoilers. I mean, it's out there in the public domain, and lots of people are chatting about this, so I think everybody knows the general direction of it. Interestingly enough, I don't really want to talk about the main storyline that's contained within the book, nor do I want to debate the rules. The rules have been debated to the end of the day. People are already creating their spam lists and all the rest, so they can get the most out of the army. And so there's a million places you could probably talk about that. The story itself, I think, is good. It's solid. I'm a Bealtan player. I've got several years and several thousand points invested in Bealtan, so a little bit apprehensive of what they're going to do to Bealtan. What exactly did the fracture mean, etc., etc. I mean, at the end of the day, though, as with all of these things, Cadia, the planet's blown up, but you can still use your Cadian armies because there's millions of them all over the universe. So.
We also know that Phil can just spray them into a different craft world in about 10 minutes.
Worst comes to the worst, just spray them a different colour.
It was quite disgusting yesterday, actually, because we were sitting painting his boards, or bits of the board. No, sorry, I was doing it one time. I was chucking texture on and getting moaned at because I was using too much texture. Pink was crying away in the corner doing his Khorne warriors. And in the time that I did, 2 tiny little tiles worth of texture in, Phil had re-airbrushed all of his Tyranids with this blue iridescent paint, or iridescent. I think we had a chat about how you pronounce that. But I just turned to the side and everything's now changed to blue, and it's just sickening how quickly you can just get all of this stuff spray painted while we're all working really hard with a paintbrush. It's quite disheartening.
We've actually got that guy, but it's not about gaming, it's about hobbying. So Phil's that guy.
There's no work involved whatsoever and no skill. It's so annoying.
Cheers, Phil, making us feel better.
We've never said that. It does require skill. It's just annoying we don't have it.
I'm going to just redo his army in one night. That's. I feel sorry. I'm sorry. But I'm going to talk about the book. I'm going to talk about the book, even though you're unhappy with how quickly I can do it.
That's fine.
So I'm not going to follow the main story. I think Warhammer TV have covered the main story. So and if you haven't, I'll give you a 10-second view of it. Essentially, Iniad, creates this lady, brings her back from the dead, who becomes, for want of a better word, his main priestess. He's also got this warrior who is his representative, his blade, and they go through all sorts of adventures, leaving Kamara and going from planet to planet, trying to get a bunch of relics and stuff like this. End up at Bealtan. Bealtan gets kind of invaded by demons, and it's the damage that's done to Bealtan that brings about the birth of the Avatar, and then they go on to a whole bunch of other adventures. So it's good stuff. Is Bealtan dead? It kind of ends at the section saying, so spoiler, it's not quite dead. The bone singers were working hard to essentially repair the damage. It's certainly greatly diminished because sections of it simply broke away during this, so it's much smaller, and it is rotten at the core, so there's a lot of work to be done. So decades, possibly centuries, I think is the line in the book, before Bealtan is back to its former glory. So again, it's still around, so you can happily do your green and white dudes everywhere, and they've still got a home to go back to if that's what you're looking for. What I really liked was these little side steps into these addenda inquisitoria, basically. This was these little sections that I think possibly give you a hint of where the story is going then. So the first one is this astral missive, and they're graded, and I love this. These are all called doomsday grades, so I think that basically means this is bad news, not good news. And they talk about what warp storms are taking place near Oberon, and three-headed hound devouring the sky, and all these wonderful, stuff that doesn't really make any sense, that obviously all the psychers are picking up as imagery. And then they start to bring in this Imgar monolith, to mentioning this Necron monolith. And I think there's an interesting point that essentially it describes that there's a great deal of activity between Necron fighters raging in deep space, battles against, demon hordes. So great big winged demons in the void. And they make a big deal of that, by the way, in this story. And I've not really encountered it before, but they talk about demons, of course, not suffering from the void at all. So you've got demons giving space battles. You have demons walking around on the outside of spaceships, or you've got demons just simply throwing themselves off their spaceship and heading towards the enemy's spaceship. So, and it makes sense. So they don't breathe air, do they? But what does it talk into? It says that the conflict is spilled into Imperial space. It's relatively close to Terra, I think, is what they're saying. And what you've got is, these interesting things, that this huge monolith thing that the Necrons have got, that every time they get close to it, they appear to duplicate. So, again, there's just a hint. Maybe the Gathering Storm is going to include Necrons versus demons in Imperial space, or it's already been covered a little bit in the first book, hasn't it? Of course, with some help from the Necrons there. But even so, I like it. I think there's a hint there that the story could be going in that direction. So maybe there's a future triumvirate there. We could be seeing some kind of Necron character at last. Some really colourful creature and
it's
some
good that
demon.
they're tying it in though. They're bringing in all of the armies now. Dave's just said in the chat, "Wait, Necrons, my ears just pricked up." So he's obviously just been sitting there listening away. And as soon as you say Necrons, he's there, because that's all he's interested in. It's Necrons or Alpha Legion. That's all he's bothered about. So it's nice that they're bringing them back. Say again.
Dave, I'll send you a bit more information, Dave. But it's great stuff. And like I say, some kind of monument or monolith that when they go close to it, they duplicate. So like a Necron photocopier or 3D printer. But I like the idea. And again, I hope this is what they do. I hope this is the 30th anniversary of 40k. I hope what we're going to see is a little bit of love to every race, even if it's just a little bit of love.
Sounds like end times to me.
So the next one is
negative. It's so negative, thing. Oh, sounds like End Times to me. End Times was brilliant. It progressed the story.
I didn't say it was a bad thing.
It's so negative.
I just ignored that.
I want to hear about the other one though, the Gene Stealer stuff.
Well, we've got here we go. This is the next one then, Doomsday Grade again. This is Damocles Crusade. So weirdly enough, this is talking, if I remember rightly, about flaming nebula across the group. So essentially you've got warp distortions ripping through space, these etheric sort of tempests flickering into life. And I imagine just a big flaming warp storm in the middle of space, which is taking out entire sort of battalions of of Imperial units or fleets or even planets. But dragged into all of this, of course, is our friends Tau. So the Imperium are dying, but so are the Tau alongside them. So it's saying viewing the size of the phenomenon has already begun to recede, but it remains extremely aggressive. And with reported losses of large-scale Tau expansion fleet, entire Armada was consumed by the Gulf. information from our agents can believe, recommend urgent reclassification of the entire region, sort of to quarantine or extremists. So again, is that a hint that we might see some Tau action?
I'd love to see more Tau action. I know Steve's just said they can just die, but I actually quite like a lot of the Tau models that come out. I know they're just fish in suits, but they're nice models, and I like the whole for the greater good thing. I like the background on the Tau where they had all the different clans and they were warring against each other, and it was the Ethereals, wasn't it, that turned up and kind of said, let's fight for something rather than a little patch of land or whatever, and kind of rallied everybody into this one greater good thing, and then went off and destroyed everything. If you didn't follow their rules, then they destroyed you, but if you followed them, then that's fine. You get a Tau pulse rifle and you can go and shoot things with them.
So the next one then, and this will get you all excited because this isn't Doomsday grade, this is Terror grade overrule.
Yay, goodbye Terror.
Goodbye Terror. And it says, that which our order has long feared has finally come to pass. The gene stealer cult has been uncovered on Terror. So organisms ranging from first generation pure strains to fourth generation worker hybrids have been shadowed, tallied and traced back to their lairs. In the last 3 weeks, 6 cluster nets have been exercised from a hive. Combined efforts of the Adaptus Arbeiter.
Yeah, the police.
So that's the police, isn't it? And the Adaptus Custodies.
Yeah.
So
they've got a problem if you've got custodies running around cleaning up.
So you could see a triumvirate, couldn't you? Maybe, which might just take one of the Gene Stealer models and put it in a separate box. It might not give you a redesign, but maybe the Adaptus Police and Custodian.
Yeah.
Some kind of custodian.
We'll probably get a third Broodlord, won't we?
Okay, yeah.
We could even get the Broodlord on a throne, couldn't we? Again.
Oh, Phil's built one. If they bring out a, go on, where is it, Phil?
I'm not going.
Phil, can you build me a Sanguinius so they bring that out, please?
Yeah.
I said, can you build me a Sanguinius so they bring that out, please?
It is true, actually, because you did Cypher. They've put that in a triumvirate. Yep. You've done this.
Thanks, guys.
We'll wait for the Broodlord to go on a chair.
Yeah. The only one I've ever got right was I refused to buy Wraithguard. The Pinecast / metal ones.
Yeah.
Because one day they'll be out in plastic, and I think I had to wait about 4 years. I keep saying I'm not doing it. When everybody was adding Wraithguard to their Eldar armies, I just refused to do it because I just didn't want to take those old models to the board. But it was worth the wait. I think I'm just going to learn to be more patient in future, maybe. So, Assassinorium's involved in this. It's a wide-scale inquisitorial investigation attempting to burn the alien Tate from the heartland of mankind. So
I'm surprised the Death Watch haven't joined in as well, because they're all about killing aliens, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a few little snippets there. They may mean nothing at all, or and it might just be a bit of extra background. So anybody who's reading this book thinks, "Hey, my army got mentioned," or something like that. Who knows? Or, like I say, hopefully what they are is a hint to where the Gathering Storm is going. Because we've had. Well, there's a strong hint. This is a spoiler alert now. It's not a strong hint. They're very explicit. The Eldar are now travelling with the second triumvirate is now travelling with the first triumvirate to Ultramar with the intent of raising Guilliman from the dead. So, I think we know that's successful. I've got a feeling I've not the time for me to create my own 40k Guilliman model. Safe to say it's on its way out, but so we know where that's going. The question is what's going to happen next? Then is Guilliman going to dash back to Terra to stop this Gene Stealer uprising?
No. He's going to stay on Macragge.
He's going to stay on Macragge.
Yeah, he's all about Macragge.
I think we know what he's going to do. He's going to go and take the battle to Abaddon, isn't he? But we assume he is. Anyway.
I think that Macragge is going to be the new Terror. So Guilliman's going to end up being the new Emperor, and they'll say, "Well, move to Terror." Then, nah, sorry, mate, I'm on Macragge. That's why we always care about Macragge. Macragge is number one, and he's probably just going to let Gene Stealers have Terror, maybe get a couple of golden thrones and chuck them on his planet, and sort his own throne room out. But that would be pretty cool. Steve's saying Dawn, bring Dawn back. I'd love Dawn to come back just so he could get slapped back down again. That'd be really, really good. No, I would like a Dawn model. I don't like Dawn.
that's it. Without getting too much into it, the Eldar, there's a wonderful bit in the book where the Eldar are basically saying, obviously we've got our new god of the dead, or at least on his way. Things are looking rosy, but it's not enough. It's not enough to take on chaos. What can we do next? Where can we go? And there's this wonderful bit where they basically say, orcs are crazy, Tower too young, Tyranids out the question, so it's back to humans, and they have this little debate between the group of sort of saying, the problem is they're prone to taint, they will turn to chaos themselves. And then one of the Eldar makes the point, actually, while ever their faith is strong, they're actually very good against chaos, as long as they've got faith. And there goes the debate of sort of saying, well, the corpse god isn't enough of a symbol. The idea he doesn't lead from the front, does he?
He's not doing much.
He's not doing a lot, is he? He's basically like a big AAA Duracell battery powering the Astronomicon. Rechargeable, albeit, so
Quite a few
rechargeable.
Souls.
Yes, no. I'm sure he's doing a bunch of other stuff as well, but it's not leading from the front is an image of faith. So the idea is if they bring a Primarch back and the best of the Primarchs, I'm not going to start a fight there. But that's
Steve says Grey Knights need to hit his reset button. Reset the Emperor. Imagine it just shut down though. Oh no, we've got no guidance.
That's the thing, of course. This God of the Dead can raise rubric marines. I don't think I'm spoiling too much by sort of saying that. It genuinely reanimates rubric marines back to their living self, so the living body inside the armor and all the rest. If the Avatar can do that, then what's stopping him popping over to Terra and bringing the Emperor back alive? Other than they probably wouldn't have a lot of interest in that, unless that's just a bridge too far. It's one thing to bring back a marine, maybe. Another thing to bring back an Emperor. Plus they'd never get near him. Let's face it. So
Yeah.
It's also a little bit awkward where the Emperor was saying there are no gods and then gets resurrected by a god.
yeah. Well, the line on that would be that's no god. It's just some crazy crazy
magic.
Weird Xenos.
Magic is heresy. Kill the demon. He'd probably get resurrected, then he'd kill the god that just resurrected him. That's how the Emperor rolls.
I think if he was to come back, he's going to have to change that story a little bit, isn't he? He's going to have to say, okay, maybe. Maybe there's a few gods, okay? Maybe.
So overall, Games Workshop, I think, are going in the right direction with these Gathering Storm campaign, because they've released so many different campaign books in the past that a lot of people that I know haven't even bothered, other than getting some rules out of it to play in some games. They've not bothered with the story. They've not bothered with any of that side of the stuff. Whereas this Gathering Storm is quality in all of the backgrounds, the models, and the rules that it's bringing with it. I can't see really that many negatives, other than everything else needs to catch up.
No, I have to say there's some good scenarios in there. There's some game scenarios in there that are really, really interesting. They're very different to the standard games. In terms of the layouts, the battlefield. There's one game where there's this Eldar walkway gate, which occupies the centre 12 inches of the back line. Then you've got a Chaos Demon deployment zone, and of course, what the Eldar have got to do is basically stop the Chaos Demon getting through the gate. So, the Chaos Demon guys literally win points by leaving the battlefield, but they've got to do it by this 12-inch gap. And they've got to open the gate first as well, which requires some pretty damn hard smacks to get it open. So just
not sacrifices.
Very points. No, not sacrifices. You literally need to get, a greater demon fired up and angry, and then go over and punch the gate.
I think we should have a scenario where you have to kill stuff to open a gate, like Warcraft. Yeah. You have to power a portal by luring the enemy near it and then destroying them and then powering it with their souls. That'd be cool.
You could even do it with blood type points as well, and just link that to the portal.
Kill yourself to power the portal. Good stuff. Right, well, we're almost up to an hour, so I think we're going to talk about the... we'll talk about WarhammerFest briefly, and we'll probably leave it at that. I mean, there's not much to say other than... are you going? Because it's going to be on 27th and the 28th of May. 20 quid for an adult, 10 quid for a child. That's for tickets. So it's same old. Just moved to Rico Arena, so it's only around the corner from us. I think I'm going to probably go on the Sunday just to go and have a look at the Golden Demon stuff again, because last year it was really good.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, if you're going to go, you might as well go on the Sunday, really. Don't lose anything out, do you?
And I mean, some people go on the Saturday and then the Sunday because there's so much to do while you're there. A lot of people just spend one day buying things, and they might have advance orders again, or they might have exclusive. Well, they will have an exclusive only product range that you can buy. So it might be worth going for both days. I'm probably only going to go for the one though.
Do they keep some of that back for the second day normally?
Yeah, I think they keep it.
Last year there was a few things that weren't. The delivery didn't show up on the second day, so you couldn't actually get them.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was now, but I was after it and kind of was very first in the queue to the shop, and they were like, "No, sorry, we were expecting a delivery today. It's not arrived."
Yeah.
I suppose if you're really keen on getting those exclusive models, you go on the Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be there on the Sunday.
Definitely on the Sunday. Maybe do both days this year. I don't know. I think it would be good fun.
Good stuff. Well, has anybody else got anything else to say, or shall we wrap it up and leave it at that for the day?
No, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
I've decided to change the colour of my Tyranids during the course of this call.
What are they now?
Pink, bright pink. So they'll be done by the end of tonight.
Quality. I want to see progress pictures.
What's this? I'll hire a bus, take us all. Well, Steve, I've got 7 seats in my car, so I can give you a lift, mate. And I haven't, capital letters, don't worry, I didn't think you were shouting.
So is Steve going to drive us all?
No, well, yeah, always welcome to come with us. I mean,
I see that was you.
I'm sure Steve's local, isn't he?
We're all local.
Right.
Anyway, it's been good. Thank you everybody for watching. If you are watching this back, first of all, thanks for Phil and Ping and Liam for coming on and chatting to me, so it's not just me talking nonsense. Thank you everybody who has been chatting away. And if you're watching this back, thank you for watching it back. If you can subscribe and like the video and share it to anybody who you think would be interested, that would be awesome. And we'll hopefully try and do these once a week, if not every 2 weeks. And we'll try and get some decent content and questions. So if there's anything you want answered, put it in the comments below for now. We have got a Facebook group which you can join. If you just search Wargamer Online Community on Facebook, you can join that. Other than that, thanks for watching and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.